today in this video, we are going to talk about simplifying fractions. Simplifying has another name. We also call it reducing, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But your goal for today is I can write simplified, take this part out. We'll do that next time. I can write simplified fractions, which technically are equivalent fractions, so you could leave them in if you want, but we're not going to really talk about equivalent fractions today. All right, so like I just said, the word simplify means to reduce. It means to make smaller. You're going to hear me use the word simplify. You're going to hear me use the word reduce on tests and quizzes. You're going to see both of these words interchanged, and you need to know what both of them mean. But at the end of the day, both of them mean to make smaller. Okay, and that's all we're doing is we're taking the numbers and we're making them smaller. All right, so what is simplifying fractions? So simplifying fractions, so the numerator, which if you remember is the top, and the denominator, which if you remember is the bottom, are both as small as they can possibly be. But here's the kicker. The value of the fraction stays the same. So if I started out with 1/2, no matter how small I make those numbers, it's still going to be 1/2. And let me show you what that looks like. So there's a couple really quick steps to simplifying fractions. So here we have the fraction 6/10. So step 1 is you're going to find the GCF, which if you remember is the greatest common factor of the two numbers, the numerator and the denominator. Now, a lot of you can look at those and find the greatest common factor right off the bat. But just to be clear, I'm going to show you real quick. And just as a quick review, we make two little factor trees. So there's one. Here's another one. And then to find the GCF, we find the matches. And so choose the only one, and so our GCF here is 2. And remember, the greatest common factor, it's the biggest number that goes into both of those numbers evenly, okay? So now that we have our GCF of 2, and I'm going to sort of box it off over here as a reminder, what we need to do is divide the numerator and the denominator by that GCF. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And what you just did is you made a fraction in the most simplified or the most reduced form. Now it's important to know that 6/10, it means the exact same thing as 3/5. But oftentimes we want things in the most simplest form so that we're dealing with the smallest numbers. All right, so here's some really quick examples. So I have 12/20, and I need to find the GCF of that. So I'm going to make a quick little factor tree here. And again, if you can do this in your head, that is super awesome. Definitely not a problem at all. But just to be clear, I'm going to write it all out. Okay, I'm going to take my matches, so it looks like I have a 2 and a 2. Put it over here. And I have a 2 and a 2. Put it over here. 2 times 2 is 4. And so my GCF here is 4. So now step 2, once I found my GCF, I need to divide it. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 20 divided by 4 is 5. And so my new fraction is 3/5. All right, over here I have 4/14. I'm going to make two factor trees really quickly. That first one was super quick. This one is going to be just as quick. All right, I need to find my matches, and it looks like I only have a 2 and a 2. And so I'm going to, now that I have my GCF of 2, I'm going to divide the top by 2, and I'm going to divide the bottom by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So my reduced fraction, my simplified fraction, is 2/7. All right, over here I have 5 and 15. I'm going to make a factor tree real quick. These guys are pretty quick. Okay, and I have a match here with the 5s, and that's about it. So my GCF is 5. Now step 2, I'm just going to divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And so my new simplifying fraction is 1 over 3. Now, before I keep going, let me just say this. I know that a lot of us coming from elementary school, we like to divide everything by 2 and then divide it by 2 again and then on and on and on. And that's perfectly fine. However, the reason why we show you how to simplify fractions with the GCF is because sometimes a number cannot divide by 2. It cannot divide by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The GCF may be something like 17 or 23 or something like that. And so by breaking it down and making our factor trees and actually finding the GCF, we can make sure that all of our fractions are simplified. We're going to be dealing with much larger numbers than you're used to, and so those factor trees are going to be very important. Now, here you're going to see some examples with mixed numbers. Fear not, my friend. This 3 right here, which is the whole number, is never going to be touched. It's just going to come right down here into the answer. And so then all I want you to focus on is the actual fraction here, okay? And so I'm going to make 2 factor trees really quickly. So 42, I have 2 and 21, and with 21, I have 3 and 7. And then with 49, all I have is 7 and 7. And so I actually only have one match, which is 7s. So my GCF is 7, and now I'm going to go back and divide both the bottom and the top by 7. 42 divided by 7 is 6, and 49 divided by 7 is 7. And so my final answer is 3 and 6 over 7. This whole number is never touched. It'll just come right back down into the final answer. All right, so here I have 18 over 20. I'm going to make myself 2 factor trees here. I have 2 and 9, and then I'm going to break down 9 into 3 and 3. Over here I have 27, which is going to break down into 3 and 9, and then 3 and 3. And so it looks like my 2 matches here. I have a 3, and then I have another 3, and so 3 times 3 is 9. And so I need to go ahead and divide the top and the bottom now. So 18 divided by 9 is 2, 27 divided by 9 is 3. All right, as a reminder, as we come to this 12 and 13 over 16, 12, that's my dog barking in the background. Say hi, Shelby. 12, the whole number, is just going to come right straight down into the answer. It's not going to be impacted by being simplified or reduced in any way. So now I need to go ahead and make my factor trees, though. 13 is a prime number, and so it does not break down in any way, okay? And so I'm just going to write 1 and 13 here. Now 26 breaks down into 2 and 13. And so my match, oops, let's use green. My match is 13. And this is what I was telling you about how sometimes the GCF is a number much larger than you think. And so I'm going to go ahead and divide the top and the bottom by 13. So 13 divided by 13 is 1, 26 divided by 13 is 2. And so your final answer on that one is going to be 12 and 1/2. All right, so here are 3 problems that I want you to go ahead and try. I'm going to work them out with factor trees as well, and then we will go ahead and compare some answers. All right, if you're not done, go ahead and pause the video so you can keep working them out, but I want to show you what I went ahead and came up with. So here, our fraction 10 over 20, our GCF would end up being 10, and our reduced fraction is 1/2. With 32 over 6, our GCF is 2, and our reduced fraction is 16 over 3. With 65 over 5, our GCF is 5, and our reduced fraction is 13 over 1. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in another lesson, but whenever the bottom is 1, you can actually ignore it and just consider the top number to be a whole number. So you can also write this answer as 13. All right, go ahead and try these 3 other ones. I will work them out with you. Keep in mind here that there are whole numbers. Remember that you do not simplify the whole numbers. You'll just bring them down into your final answer. All right, go ahead and pause the video if you're not done. So for our first fraction, 2 and 36 over 60, we just brought down the 2 because we don't have to mess with that. Our GCF was 12, and so we ended up with 2 and 3 over 5. For 21 over 28, our GCF was 7, and so we ended up with 3/4. And then for 9 and 15 over 45, we brought down the 9 as the whole number. 15 and 45 had a GCF of 15, and so our final answer was 9 and 1/3. All right, so that is it for this lesson. The big takeaway is your 2 steps, finding the GCF and then dividing both the numerator and the denominator to find your answer. Please, please, please do not be lazy with making your factor trees. They're very important, and it's oftentimes the difference between getting the answer wrong and right. Let me know if you have any questions in class.